What's going on, guys? Welcome to the David F. Haas podcast. I'm your host, David F. Haas, here in the studio all by my lonesome under the quarantine lockdown. But see if I can bring you some value today. I'm going to try and make this one quick. Nice little get in, get out. If you're listening in your car, get you into your drive to work if you are working during this time. What I want to talk about today is really simple, and that's the concept of that the world is a mirror that is reflecting back to you what it is that you still need to work on. And for some reason, this has been coming up with a lot of my clients lately, coming to the realization that whatever triggers you in the outside world is just an indication of what you still need to fix on your own. Okay, so if you have a husband or a wife that triggers you because they don't put away their dirty socks, there's something in there that is basically that is still inside you, and what you have to do to determine what it is still inside you is to dig into why it makes you so angry. Okay, so if someone judges you for something in your life, then probably what is still going on inside of you is that you're still judging others, and you need to learn how to become free of judging others. If someone, one of the things we can use my own personal example, one of the things that used to really trigger me was people that got triggered easily, which is kind of funny. So if I was driving and I made a mistake on the road and someone would just lose their mind and honk their horn. I remember this one time I accidentally pulled out in front of this guy, and he literally laid on his horn for 5 minutes straight. Right, and I was able to recognize that I was in the state of anger, and I didn't get out of my car and kill him, thankfully, because of the work that I've done. But looking at that my own what's going on inside of me with regards to this situation, was that there was still anger inside of me that I had yet to let go of. And I just read a post actually from one of my former clients that was really good, and what he was saying in that post was that we're out there protesting with regards to Black Lives Matter, and we're protesting that we hate Trump or we love Trump. Canadians aren't doing this. We're protesting the vaccines are good, vaccines are bad, but ultimately that anger that we're using to fuel our protest is what we need to transcend in order to create the change in the world that we're looking for. More anger is just going to create more anger. More force is just going to create more force. And there's a big thing about people talking about how don't look to spiritual teachers that are asking you to look within, but it's all the great spiritual teachers told you that. Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, all the great spiritual teachers of our time always said to look within to create the change that you want to see in the world, right? And so the question then becomes okay, well, how does looking within create change? And that's a great question, because during this time, especially right now when the world is so divided, we're on either you're for the lockdowns or you're against them, you're for the vaccine, you're against them, you're for Trump, you're against them. The world, and when I say the world, North America is so divided on the issue, and probably the world is divided on the coronavirus issue. We feel the need to get up on a stool and give our 2 cents. But the reality of the situation is that the world is going to go on whether you put your 2 cents in or not. And secondly, is that most people are only watching the content that agrees with whatever point of view that they have. So there's very few Republicans that are watching CNN, and there's very few Democrats that are watching Fox News, right? So all it ends up doing is you just further confirming your beliefs, and you never actually take the time to get to what is the truth. Now, with that knowledge though, there is times, because I've actually seen it, I've posted some controversial stuff here about coronavirus recently, and there is times where people lash out at you. They allow that anger to get the best of them, and they send that negative comment. And what that I've seen by having a rational conversation with people without emotion involved, just expressing my point of view and listening to their point of view, that people have been able to transform and see the other side of it and not just see things from one side. I've seen it multiple times. So maybe there is something to be said about standing on that soapbox and saying, hey, here's my 2 cents, because it can convert some people to maybe your way of thinking. But what I've observed in my own life is that it's never about what's going on out there, and it's always about what's going on in here. And in order to create the change that we want to create and see in the world, we need to fix what's going on in us. We can't go out and promote don't be angry when we're angry ourselves, right? So how does one change a message? How does one change the world by not standing on the soapbox? And ultimately, what happens is, if as you go within, as you begin to do the healing, naturally people are just going to be drawn to whatever it is you're doing. They're going to be attracted to the type of person that you are. So if you're a loving and compassionate person who doesn't judge, who doesn't have anger, who doesn't hold resentment towards somebody, you're going to be a pretty likable person. And naturally people are going to want to be around you more. And as that happens, then they're going to start listening to what it is that you're doing more, right? And then that's how you can change the world, right? You look at like a guy like Gandhi, and he created a bunch of change without ever, having an army or really preaching, right? People just were aligned with his message that came from like a really high place, really high state of consciousness, and then they were attracted to his cause. And that's essentially, the guy that I've, spent a lot of time following is Dr. David Hawkins. And, when he would put on lectures, he would just send out one email and the lectures would be sold out. He wrote the book Letting Go. It was one of his first books that he actually wrote, but later it was released just after he died, and that book is gaining all kinds of momentum now. And why? It's just because of the vibration of the work, right? It speaks for itself, and people are going to be attracted to that. So that's how you change, right? Hawkins used to say, the first thing you can do to change the world is let go of your desire to change the world. And I love that quote because it's about looking within and asking yourself why you feel like the world needs to change and why you think you're so important, that you're the one that's going to create that change. And then looking within to become free of that stuff, and then people will start to be drawn to you. So let me put this in a little bit of perspective, and this is something that my mentor Andrew Facca does all the time, and it's just such a great visualization of what our role in this world is, and to kind of in some ways makes us realize that our problems aren't that big and our 2 cents really don't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. They can matter to change millions of people's lives, but the be all end all is that the world is going to go on. So what's the speed of light? Just thinking about this. And the speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second. So knowing that the speed of light is that fast, is how long does it take a ray of light to get from the sun to the earth? Think of a question and answer. So it's 8 minutes. So that's how long it takes. Going 300,000 kilometers per second. It only takes 8 minutes for a ray of light to get from the sun to the earth. So then when we look up in our galaxy, you can see, if you look up in the sky at night, you can see our galaxy. It's called the Milky Way, right? And if you were to be able to travel at the speed of light, in a UFO or something like that, and that could go at the speed of light, could go 300,000 kilometers per second. So it's like a blink and you've gone 300,000 kilometers. How long do you think it would take you to get from one end of our galaxy to the other? So think of that answer. And the answer is 100,000 years. And these are all approximates. You can do the math on it. But it's 100 to 150,000 years to get across our entire galaxy. Okay? So just to get you a feel of how gigantic our galaxy is. Now, if you really want to have your mind blown, is that when the scientists sent Hubble up and they got it outside of our solar system, and they were able to take a picture of whatever the camera could see in the universe, they were able to, from that picture, they're able to create an estimate of how many galaxies they believe exist in the universe. And the answer is 200 billion galaxies exist in the universe. It takes 100,000 years to get across our galaxy, and there's 200 billion galaxies in the universe. And the truth of it is that the universe is infinite and it's continuously expanding at light speed. Okay, so when you realize that, you come to this awareness that we are literally a speck of sand, right? Floating in way more empty space than you can ever even wrap your mind around, and we're living on this speck of sand. So when you feel the need to stand up on the soapbox and give your 2 cents, you can kind of be like, well, wow, this problem isn't as big. The world has gone on. Humanity has gone on for thousands of years. The world has been around for 1 billion years. The universe even longer. I think things are going to continue to go on without me having to stand up on the soapbox and tell everybody my 2 cents. And in some ways, I know there's going to be a lot of resistance to this podcast, because people are charged up by the coronavirus and everything that's going on, and they want to give their 2 cents. They want to stand on that soapbox, and they feel that that's the only way that real change is ever going to happen. But I'm a testament to the fact that real change can happen just by going within, and you're going to attract more people to your message. And as you raise your level of consciousness, the tide raises all boats, and you just bring everyone up around you with you, right? And then there is no more anger. There is no more hatred. You become free of judgment. You, instead of getting angry, you see everybody with acceptance. There's no more guilt. There's no more fear, right? And fear is driving this whole entire thing right now. You can transcend all of that, and you can see everything for what it truly is. And it's just such a great place to be. So that's why we want to constantly be looking within. And that's where the theme of this podcast comes in, is that the world is a mirror reflecting back to us what it is that we still need to work on. So just think of some situations right now that have triggered you in the past, right? So any emotional response, any negative, I should say, emotional response that you are getting in your day-to-day life is an opportunity for you to let go of something. Okay, so there's this great lesson from the Course in Miracles where you compartmentalize your thoughts. And if you don't know what a Course in Miracles is, it's a spiritual teachings where you read a lesson a day every day for 365 days. And it's super powerful. Hawkins calibrated it like in the high 800s, I believe. And essentially, what they do is they start to make you aware that your thoughts are essentially meaningless, and the way you see this world is only because of your own perception. All right. And one of the lessons is to start you to understand that where your thoughts are kind of constantly going. And the lesson is you close your eyes and you say, I find myself constantly thinking about, and then you give it a name, like constantly thinking about a person, constantly thinking about a place. I added my own little thing was, am I constantly thinking about the past, or am I constantly thinking about the future? And so I have a group online coaching that I'm doing right now. The group's going great. And as I was doing this, I was doing the exercise on my own, and I realized I was constantly thinking about what I had to do that day, right? So that thought over the course of like a 3-minute meditation must have came up maybe like 10 times. I find myself thinking about that I have to go to this appointment. And it said it, like my mind said it in multiple different ways, but it was all about the future. So then I was like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for me to let go of whatever it is. Like, why does my mind even need to tell me that I have an appointment at 1:00? Right? I know it's like written in my calendar. It's written in my phone. I have it written in my book here, right? And I'm like, I don't need my mind to constantly be telling me that I need to go to this appointment. Okay. So with that realization, I was like, oh, wow, all of these thoughts that I'm having about this appointment are completely useless because I've already put it into my calendar and I know I'm going, like it's in my plan, but the mind is just constantly saying, I got to go to this appointment. I got to go to this appointment. It's like, don't forget about the appointment at this, I'll make sure you have gas in your car or whatever. It was just like multiple different scenarios about having to get to this appointment. So So then I said, okay, well, what's going on here? So then what I do to get to the truth and get to the root of it is I just sit quietly in meditation. And I sat quietly in meditation and said, why is my mind constantly reminding me of something that I already have to do? And instantaneously, I was brought to this moment of where I missed an appointment, right? I was supposed to meet somebody really important, and I missed it. And it was probably in like my drinking days, right? Where I was just, I was hungover and I forgot about the appointment, and the person called me and was like, where the hell are you? And basically I lost out on the opportunity to work with that person because I had missed the appointment. So the survival pattern that my mind created, or I should say the mind created, was to constantly be reminding me about what I have upcoming, so I don't feel the humiliation of missing that appointment. I don't feel the loss of opportunity. So then what I did is I just sat in those feelings. I allowed myself to feel them, and then once I truly fully connected to the feeling of the humiliation, it really was the humiliation of basically seeming like I was a deadbeat, and allowed myself to truly connect and feel that. Then I did the same exercise again, and I noticed my mind wasn't reminding me of daily tasks anymore because I had dealt with the underlying emotion that was driving all of the thoughts. Okay, so this is how the world is constantly giving us opportunities to let go, and the letting go process is continuous. If you are in the present moment, it could be described as being in the zone. And I think I talked about this in the last podcast, but I don't know. But ultimately, when you're in the zone, basketball players have described this as like, like the basket gets like to the size of like a hula hoop, and you just can't miss. And the second that we think that about, oh, am I going to hit the next shot? Or we think about our past record, or I've never played this good before, whatever, that's when they miss, right? When they're truly, fully present, they're in the zone, right? So imagine living your life like that. Imagine living your life in the zone where the mind is quiet, right? And, a lot of times we have to train our mind to be silent. The problem being is that the mind will fight with everything that it has to not be silent, because we believe we are our minds, right? And if our mind goes silent, then we think we're going to die. So you'll notice when you shut your eyes and you try and silence the mind, it's like next to impossible, because the mind is just constantly chattering, saying, hey, I'm here, I'm alive, I exist, right? And it's trying to pull you out of the present moment. But the mind cannot exist, or not the mind, the ego cannot exist in the present moment. It only lives in the past or in the future. So when we do this exercise, I find myself thinking about, we can start to recognize what we're constantly thinking about, and then we can go back and identify what original incident was created around that, and what emotions tied to it, and how and all the thoughts that are associated with it. So we deal with the emotions of that original incident, and then the thoughts that are surrounding them will become free of, and also the behavior, like whatever the unwanted behavior is as well. Okay, so that's one way, is using the Course in Miracles technique. But also the other way is to just walk about your day, and every time you're triggered, say, okay, what is it within me that I still need to work on in order to become free of this? And now has never been a greater time, because literally you can turn on the news for 5 minutes and be triggered, right? So then ask yourself the question, why am I being triggered by this? Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it at that. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to experience the present moment as much as possible. And if we're not experiencing the present moment, that is an indication that we need to still be letting go of something, right? Maybe we need to let go of our attachment to the mind and to our thoughts, right? Sometimes our thoughts are a place of escape. So just starting to tune into what it is we need to let go of, where our thoughts are constantly going, what we're being triggered by, all of these are indicators on how we can begin to transcend the ego. And then we can be in the zone at all times. And you've probably experienced being in the zone. It's like sometimes when you're in the zone, you can work at your computer for like 3 hours, and you lift your head and you're like, felt like 5 minutes, right? That's the zone. There was no thought of the past or the future, right? Or maybe you're working on a project. A lot of times when you're doing like manual labor, it's really easy to get into the zone, right? I built a shed recently at my house, and like I put that thing up in like 3 days, me and my uncle, right? And we were just in the zone, right? And ultimately, when you're not in the zone, it's because of something that happened into your past, created a perception, created a belief. We then attached an emotion to it, right? And then it created a bunch of thoughts, and then it created a behavior. And this is the transformation ladder. So if you're not experiencing the zone, then you need to dig into what thoughts you're having that are preventing you from being in the zone. So we've all experienced the zone. You have to think about that moment where you've experienced the zone, and then ask yourself, why am I not in the zone all the time, right? And I know for me, like I have to do a lot of work here in my office all by myself, especially right now, like the shop that my wife's a tattoo artist, Haas Tattoos. You can check her out on Instagram. But when I'm in the shop all by myself, you would think it would be an easy time to get in the zone, but this is when the mind starts coming in and it's like wants to get distracted, wants to do these things, and it's all about like self-sabotage, about my past belief, the thought that I can't do it, I'm not smart enough, whatever, right? So these are all the little things that have created these tiny little behaviors, right? And a tiny little behavior would be distraction, for example. Like it's really easy for me to get on the phone and start making phone calls when I know I gotta write a blog, let's say, for example, right? So that tiny little behavior is a survival pattern that I created to protect myself from being vulnerable by putting out a blog post and someone saying that this is shit. All right. So, yeah, I went a little long there, but hopefully that serves you guys. Feel free to leave any comments below. Oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. And let me know what you think. Thanks for taking the time to listen. See you next week.